Hi there, welcome to episode number 8 of Little Big Knits. Today is Saturday, October 28th, I think, and it is a beautiful day here in Ottawa. Welcome, my name is Selma, I'm your host, and I live here in Ottawa with my family, my husband, my 2 kids, our 2 rats, and our 1 cat. And you can find me also on social media such as Ravelry and Instagram as selmaknits. So the last time I recorded was 2 weeks ago, so welcome back. A little sooner. I wanted to be able to podcast kind of closer to Rhinebeck rather than farther away, so that everything was still fresh in my mind. So that's why I'm podcasting today, and I'll tell you a little bit about all of that later on in the episode. So a Little Big Knits, you can find the group also on Ravelry, where you can find the show notes and our knit along, and you can introduce yourself if you like. You can ask any questions there that you'd like me to answer on the podcast or in the thread as well. And yeah, I think that's it. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for joining me today. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for sticking around with me. We're at episode 8, and I just love doing this. I have to say, it's really, really fun, and it's really such an enjoyable experience to chat with you and then also have interactions afterwards, whether it's in YouTube or in the Ravelry group. So thank you so much for joining me. So today, I actually have 2 mugs in front of me, and partly it's because I'm totally indecisive. When we were away on our road trip last weekend, Sue picked up this mug for me, which says, "Hello, lovely." It's such a stunning pink. I just love it. And she picked this up because I have a tendency to say, "Hello, hello." So, and I often say, "Hello, lady." So this made her think of me. And then, and I had my morning tea in here. Now that it is early afternoon, I have a second cup of tea, which is actually, I don't know if you can see there we go. You can see it's a smoking hot tea. This is a beautiful cup that Kate, who was just visiting me from Ireland, brought. It is from an Irish potter whose name is Nicolas, and he does this printing, and this one is clematis flowers around, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's huge, so it's perfect for an afternoon cup of tea. So grab yourself a cup of tea or a glass of something or a bowl of ice cream, as somebody said they were having the last time, and join me. I have one little bit of, actually I'm going to take a sip. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this tea actually before I move forward. My little finger keeps moving. This is gingerbread tea from Tivana, and one of the people we were on the trip with gave me a gigantic bag of this because she works at Tivana. Huge. It's bigger than my head. As well as another bag of their pumpkin spice brulee, which is a decaf tea. And they have both been wonderful tea, so thank you, Jessica. And that's what I'm drinking today, the gingerbread from Tivana. So before we move on to actual knitting and then telling stories of Rhinebeck, I thought I'd just mention that we have a knit along going on in the group. It is our Garments Galore knit along or crochet along, which I am co-hosting with Kate of the Cottage, Hawthorn Cottage Craft. Sorry, Kate. Who has a podcast, and she's based in Ireland and is back in Ireland today, and has had a good trip, just so you know. And so this Garment Galore Cal is a cal that we started at the beginning of October, and it goes until the end of March, 6 months long, during which you can knit as many garments as you like. A garment being something that covers your torso in some way, whether it is not an accessory. So it must be a piece of clothing like a sweater, a tunic, a cardigan, a skirt, a dress, a coat, stockings, if you want to knit stockings, that kind of thing. And we have chatter threads, and there's lovely conversation going on in there. We've got 2 FO threads in each of our groups, because in my group and in Kate's group, we've got a general finished object thread. And then in my group, we've also got a first time knitting a sweater or first garment finished object thread. So if you have just finished your first garment, and I think we have our first project in there, congratulations. You can post in there as well as in the finished object thread. And you can double dip, because you can also post in Kate's and any other knit alongs that are going right now that your project works for. And Kate has an extra thread. I have the first sweater. She has the Mount Everest. Sorry, suddenly I couldn't remember the name. So that is for any knitted item that has required more than 1,400 yards to knit it. So completed with 1,400 yards, you can, so if you made a larger coat or a dress or something that required a lot of yardage for somebody else who's larger, you can post it in there as well as in the regular FO thread. So, so there you go. Thank you for joining in on that. And if you're still thinking about it, hey, join in whenever you like and knit as many garments as you like during that period. All right. So, since the last time I spoke to you, I have finished the tunic, and I have worn the tunic a lot. It has been such a great item to have for many reasons. First of all, it's just easy peasy to put on. I've been wearing it with a gray blouse that I have and a white blouse that I have at work. With some darker gray pants that I have. I've worn it with jeans, and today I'm wearing it with nothing underneath, because both my blouses are dirty. And also it's actually still really warm here in Ottawa. It's about 18, 20 degrees out there, and I just thought I need to wear as little as I can. But because this was knit in a fingering kind of light sport weight alpaca yarn, it's warm, but it's not too warm. So it's just been such a great thing to wear. Last time I podcasted, I had finished one side and I was doing the other side. And I have since done the 3 needle bind off, and I'll stand up so I can show it to you. So here you go. It's got a lace detail underneath. It's got just enough ease that it's a nice garment. There you go. So see what it looks like, and it goes down a little further in the back than in the front. The line where the color changes turned out just perfectly. I was a little concerned that it was going to be like right across the bust, but it went up right over it, so it's very flattering. And I'm in love with this. This was the Camden Hills Poncho by Elizabeth Smith. It's meant to be knit in a worsted weight yarn. And I made this, as I mentioned earlier, in more like a heavy fingering, light sport weight type of yarn. I still got, I think the original pattern had an 18 stitch gauge over 4 inches or 10 centimeters, and I got 22, I believe. And I decided to make the small size because the small size in the regular pattern would have had, I think, like a good 10 inches of ease, and I didn't really want that kind of ease anyway. And this probably has about 4 inches. Yeah, I'm going to say about 4 inches of ease, and so it's just loose and wonderful. This alpaca is absolutely stunning. I would buy it again in a flash. As I had mentioned before, it was quite pricey, and that was why I hesitated going back to Rhinebeck and buying a second skein of the gray. I decided to just suck it up and use the other gray and make it a color block, but I'm really happy I did. I think it's lovely, and I'm going to get so much wear out of this. So there you go. Very happy with it. I did not go to Persimmon Farms, which is the yarn that I used at Rhinebeck this time. I kind of missed out on that, which I'll tell you a little bit more about later as well. So this is the first FO, and I'm very, very pleased with it. The second FO I mentioned to you last time. I started knitting slippers for my daughter, which will be for her birthday. She's actually upstairs. My husband and my daughter are home today. My son has gone out with his friends, and but I don't think she'll hear me because I'd like these to be a surprise. She just recently got rid of all her Barbie stuff. She had a Barbie house and a Barbie camper and a Barbie Volkswagen and a Barbie this and a Barbie that and Barbies galore and Barbie clothes, and she didn't want them anymore. So we gave them to a friend who has smaller girls who are absolutely thrilled. And so suddenly my daughter has all this space in her room. Her birthday's coming up and I think I'm going to buy her a beanbag, which I know she will just love. And then she'll get some slippers and something else, and it'll be a perfect birthday. So these are the, what was this called? The Simple House Slippers, I believe. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. And this will not be my last pair that I make. I used some hand-dyed Knit Picks Bear that I had dyed, and look at the pooling on this. It just came out kind of psychedelic and fun. And the funny thing is that they kind of match. Like, look at that. Isn't that strange? It's like they create a pattern, and it just happened. I really didn't, you know, I was like, well, whatever happens, happens. And I was actually worried that it was going to pool in a very different way on the second slipper, but in a way it just pooled sort of perfectly, symmetrically. Strange. So these are sized, I would say, for about a size 7.5 foot. I had Kate try them on and they fit her, and Isla's got about size 7.5 in American size. And she's got a narrower foot, so I think they'll fit really well. You can manipulate these once you understand how they're made and make sizes of all sizes. You could make them for bigger, smaller, teeny weeny, whatever. They're meant to be knit in worsted weight, so I doubled the yarn, and this is what came out. Love them, just love them. So they'll be like that. There's a hole there. My aunt had made me some very similar slippers that I wore and wore and wore, and I happened to find one the other day because they'd sort of been, they died a while ago, and she had actually done the ribbing or the garter stitch all the way till about here, and then just did the knit for the toe. So that, and they were great too. I wore them a lot. I mean, I wore them until they couldn't be worn anymore. So I think these just have so many possibilities. You know, they could be knit in acrylic if you're wanting to make many to have at the front of at the entrance for guests, or you know, if you've gotten some yarns that you're not quite sure what to do with, like this one. I didn't know what to do with it. One day it just spoke to me and became slippers. So these are really great. I'm very pleased. I knit them in 4mm needles, and you basically knit a garter rectangle and then you just sew it at the end. And I really did it in a very simple way, not particularly elegant way, but it's fine. I actually didn't even read the pattern to see how I was supposed to put them together. I think this one turned out a little better. So that's FO number 2, because these ones, the second one I literally knit in one day during our trip. I wanted to have these finished by the time I came home, and they were finished on the Saturday. Really easy. So you could go crazy and knit many pairs before Christmas if you wanted to. Super fun. And then I decided that I was going to start one thing, but I also wanted, okay, let me start that over again. When I originally wanted to make the branches and buds sweater, I had bought some Isolde yarn, and I'll be showing that to you in a little bit, and some Eden Cottage yarns, Oakworth, which is 100% Polworth, and this was going to be the color work, but it just didn't quite work when I actually started doing it. So I thought, well, I really don't want this precious yarn to sit around and not become something right away. So I thought, I'm casting on a hat. And I ended up making a hat called the Michelle. And you know what? I don't even have the pattern anymore. I don't know where it's ended up. So I'll just put that in the down bar because I don't remember who it's by. Free pattern as well. Super duper simple slip stitch pattern. And this one I knit on the way there and on the way back from Rhinebeck and finished it. It was so fast. There are two versions for this hat. There's a less slouchy and a more slouchy, and I did the less slouchy. And then my friend Holly, who was our wonderful driver during the trip, she has a series of pom-poms that she made at one point from, I don't know how many fur coats, 1, 2 fur coats that she bought from a charity shop and turned them into pom-poms. So she gave me this pom-pom for this hat. This was knit on, I think, 4mm needles, and it's as I said, it's 100% Polworth, superwash Polworth, DK weight. And there's the tag. Her tags have changed since then. Is that focusing? Focus. Sorry. It is 100% New Zealand Polworth yarn. And it says machine washable, so I'm assuming it's superwash. And at first when I started knitting with it, I really didn't like it. I gotta be honest, I didn't like the texture. It felt odd, like it had been overly superwashed, or I couldn't quite figure it out. And then Holly actually touched it and she said, you know, this feels like some Polworth that I worked with. And it's got an unusual texture. So it took some getting used to for me, I gotta be honest, but I do really like the final fabric. But it was a different experience, and it really is so interesting how different fibers can create a different knitting experience. Like knitting with this alpaca was like a dream. This I struggled with at the beginning, and then I got used to it and it was fine, and I'm very happy with it, and I just love the color. And so, as I said, I did the less slouchy version. So the other one would be quite slouchy. So that's what that looks like. Am I in the camera? So I think this is just going to be a really, really fun, simple winter hat. Not too heavy, so it'll be good for the not so cold days. And I just love the color. It's like water, okay? And the pom-pom is just wonderful. So I loved this hat. Such a simple stitch to do and really effective. So I think I might be making this hat again, because I think it would be a very nice gift as well. If I gave something like this to my mother, she would do this kind of like, you know, kind of more old-fashioned way of pulling things to the side, like a beret type of thing. So I might just make one for her too. So it looks like I've been super productive because I got 3 FOs, but this one was finished, almost finished when I showed it to you last. And the slippers were a piece of cake, and this was too. In the car, because I wasn't driving, I had a lot of time. It was 7 hours there and 7 hours back, so there was a lot of knitting time. I got to be honest, on the way back, it was such a stunning day, beautiful fall day in upstate New York in the Catskills, and we just kept stopping and taking pictures because everything was so beautiful. So I didn't knit as much, and that was just fine. So there you go. Isn't that pom-pom beautiful? And I like the fact that, you know, it's sort of an upcycled pom-pom. So those are the FOs I have for you this time around. In terms of whips, what have I been working on? I already mentioned to you the branches and buds, so I'll show that to you. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, the branches and buds is a wonderful colorwork sweater that was in the first Making magazine. And when I, hello, when I first, where are you? There we are. It's a design by Carrie Bostic Hogue. And very simple. It's got this color work, and then if you can see in the pictures, you afterwards embroider little buds onto the branches, hence its name, Branches and Buds. So the last time I showed you guys the different colors that I was experimenting with, and then I ended up settling on something. So I'm using an Isolde Teague yarn, which wound absolutely horribly. Not very sexy, but that's what can you do. I have problems with my Swift and my ball winder, so one day I will, finally get something that works better. But this is her blend number 1, and I think it was Zwartbles, Polworth, and Merino or something like that. Do I remember correctly? This is no longer in the making, by the way. Polworth, Merino, and Zwartbles. And I think last time I told you I thought Zwartbles was a terrible name for a poor sheep. And that's the tag there. So that's the main color. And then the second color is Estelle Andean DK Heather, which is a DK yarn, as the title says. And it is in this kind of bluish gray color, which seems to be a signature color for me these days. I feel like there's a lot of gray and a lot of gray bluey things happening in my life these days, eh? It's all, that seems to be the little bit of a phase that I'm going through, and you're going to notice later that there's also a little bit of a yellow thing starting to happen for me. Again, I used to love yellow, went off yellow, back onto yellow. So I have to be honest, I did the color work for the first section of Branches, and then last night I had to pull it out because I realized I had completely done it backwards and it looked kind of funny. So I was only able to catch up 3 of the rows last night. I had originally done the color work in the car, clearly not paying enough attention. And then there's one row where you do solidly in the color work color, and I realized, oh no, I've been doing it completely backwards because I would then be using the sweater color and that wouldn't look right. So there's not a whole lot to see here, but I'm very happy with the effect that it's going to have. It's going to be kind of just subtle and lovely. I have seen so many beautiful versions of this sweater. It is such a lovely sweater. There have been people who've used sort of more poppy branches and maybe not even done buds, all kinds of different backgrounds and color work, and I'm really enjoying it. So hopefully the next time I podcast there'll be more of a sweater. I don't think it'll be finished, and it's being housed in a bag by Kate of Hawthorn Cottage Craft. I have a feeling she's going to get mentioned a lot today. That she gave to me at least about a year ago, and I have enjoyed using a lot. So that's the only real whip. I wanted to share with you something else that I've been slowly working on. I did call it an FO at one point, but it wasn't fully an FO. So I'm in the process of turning it into a real FO. And that is my Deco cardigan. The Deco cardigan, which and look at that, my Authenticity shawl is back there, and they're kind of in the same family. The Authenticity's got a bit more oranginess to this, and this is a bit more purple. This was made out of a Joe Sharp yarn, merino luxury alpaca blend of sorts, that my friend Holly had given me. And it's the Deco cardigan by Kate Davies. And it's called Deco because it was sort of designed in the style of 1930s cardigans. And I finished it in the spring. It was really warm, and I thought, I'm not going to be wearing this anyway. I'll do the button and the ribbon and the snaps later, because with her cardigans, you generally put a ribbon on the inside. The buttons end up being more for decoration, and then you put snaps. And I was really intimidated by this. I gotta tell you, I've never done this. I'm really not very good at hand sewing, and so this was kind of stressing me out. And I was putting it off, and And then I thought, I've got to finish this before Rhinebeck and maybe wear it at Rhinebeck. And then I realized it's gonna be really warm, but I thought I really still have to finish it. Okay, I have to finish it before Kate arrives. I've got to get it done. Well, it hasn't been completely finished, but I have at least put the buttons on, and I've actually sewn the ribbon on, which was some grosgrain ribbon that I got at Michael's. It's not that easy to find ribbon. If you know of a great easy place to get ribbon from beyond Michael's, please let me know, because I wanted something fun, but I couldn't find anything that suited. And so I ended up buying this plain ribbon that is this sort of, what do you call that? Is that fuchsia? And it really makes this look like a very royal looking, I think. But I find it puckers a bit. I don't know why that is. But I'm hoping that when I'm actually wearing it, the weight of it will just straighten it out. It only puckers a tiny bit. Can't even see. My sewing is so infantile. Can I just say that? But it's there. And perhaps one day I'll look back and go, oh, I was such a beginner. But I really didn't enjoy doing this. And would that stop me from making a cardigan again? Probably not, because I think it's actually going to be I think it's going to give the button band a really nice structure, and I think it's going to sit beautifully, and I think this is going to be a cardigan that I wear with a skirt at work. Excuse me. Closed or partially open with a little shirt or a t-shirt or something underneath it. And the buttons were very... I like them. They've got a bit of a sheen and a similar color as the cardigan in there. So it all worked out. So this is still a work in progress. Perhaps the next time I podcast, I will have gotten the nerve enough to put all the snaps on. And I can't even tell you why this intimidates me, but it does. It is what it is. But perhaps when I've actually finished this and been able to wear it and appreciate it, I'll think, ooh, I want to make another one, because I think that Kate Davies cardigans tend to do that. And I would knit another one of her patterns in a flash, because she really does design beautiful clothing, and it fits beautifully. And I think it's going to be nice, as I said, for a skirt or a pair of dress pants, and maybe even a pair of jeans. We'll see. So you may just see me wearing this next time. So that's essentially what I have been working on. So if you're not interested in hearing about Rhinebeck and Kate Strip here and so forth, feel free to sign off for today, and we'll see you next time. But I'll be telling you a little bit about Kate's visit and Rhinebeck and mixing all the acquisitions in that way. So I'll take a sip of tea first. So, Kate arrived, and as you know, knitters will be knitters, and so she arrived with some lovelies. She arrived with this beautiful mug, as I mentioned earlier, which is such a lovely shape and easy to drink out of, and I like that tea. And she brought the Len magazine for me, the newest one that just came out. Which if you're a podcast watcher, you may have heard other podcasters talking about it. And it is I'm going to be honest, I haven't had a lot of time to actually look at it, but there are some beautiful patterns, like these socks by Rachel Coopy called Anouk. Just very pretty. I think the item that I like the most and am most tempted to make is nowhere for me to find. This sweater here. I really love the detail along the side. I just think it could be just a lovely, relaxed sweater. It is called Hay, as in hay, H-A-Y, and I really like that. And if I remember correctly, it was made out of a fingering or a sport weight. So it's a beautiful publication. Like the making magazines, it's the kind of thing you go back to, and I haven't even had a chance to read the articles, but there are, oh, there are also these fingerless. Look at the beautiful detail on those fingerless gloves. So Kate brought that for me. Thank you very much, Kate, and I will be enjoying that. Terry of Fine Fish Yarns sent along a skein, which was very kind. I had actually not expected that, but I had been wanting the Butterball and had requested it, and then she gifted it to me. As I said, getting back into yellow, I feel like it's coming on a little bit more lemony than it is. There's a little bit of orangey stuff happening through it as well. And this is going to become something. This is her Soul Fingering Base, which is a merino single, and this is the Butterball colorway. Fine Fish Yarns is, where is she? She's in Ireland, but I think she's in Belfast. And yeah, beautiful yarn. So thank you very much. So Kate arrived not this past Tuesday, but the previous Tuesday, and stayed with us before we went to Rhinebeck, and then stayed with us until she left yesterday, last night, Friday night. And what a lovely person to have around. I highly recommend her as a guest. She was super fun, and it was a real delight to have her around. Lots of chatting. Oddly, we didn't knit a lot. In fact, I'd have to say until last night, from when we came back from Rhinebeck, I didn't knit at all this weekend. I did a tiny bit of the sewing of the ribbon, and that was all I did. But we chatted an awful lot, and I was working, so coming home and having dinner, and then the evening was done, and I needed to go to sleep. So she was being a tourist this week and was taken out as well by our friend Holly, and had a grand time. So she arrived on the Tuesday, and we left early Friday morning for Rhinebeck. We drove there. It was a beautiful drive, left first thing in the morning, and we went to Indie Untangled Friday night, where I only bought one thing. And partly it was because I didn't really need anything in terms of, I had told you guys I wanted to buy yarn to complete a sweater, to complete a blanket for our sofa, and possibly a sweater quantity, but I really didn't need any single skeins. But I did decide to get something from Wool and Vine, whose booth was practically decimated when I got there. But I got this skein of Enjoy the Silence, which is in her blitzed base, which is a merino nylon, and I think it was gold stellina. And I just thought, oh, I think I might have to make myself some Christmas socks with this. So I'm gonna look through my stash of minis to find something for the toes and heels, see if I can find anything in my collection to go with maybe the hot pink or the purple in here. And I think I'm gonna be making a pair of socks out of these. I'm quite excited. It's beautiful feeling. I can't, on part of me saying, do I really want to make socks out of this? Because it's so stunning, but I think it would be so fun to have a pair of sparkly socks for Christmas. So we'll see. I might have bought more at Indie Untangled, but I gotta say it was not the most pleasant experience. It was absolutely jam-packed, and to the point where you couldn't get into stalls because it was so full. There was just no space, and so it sort of demotivated me from shopping, I gotta be honest. And I was also not, I mean, it wasn't part of my plan, but it didn't, you know, it was more difficult to go, oh, I want that, because it was just so incredibly crowded. I don't know if they've considered a larger venue or cutting back on the number of vendors, but I do hope that it would be a different experience next time, because it was a little hard, I gotta be honest. and there were such wonderful vendors there. It was so nice to see Tuscan Knits yarns and Hugh Loco's yarns. And there were also, I bumped into people that I knew, bumped into our friend Lori, who is into it knit, and she gave me some ribbon and some lovely buttons. Lori also has a podcast, although I'm not sure that she's podcasted a lot lately. I feel like there hasn't been an episode for a while. She has a podcast called Into It Knit, and we bumped into her, which was great because we had met face to face in Edinburgh last March. So it was nice to see her, and met Tracy and Jody of the Grocery Girls, and saw Eric and saw Shamika, Eric of Sticks Plus Twine, and Shamika of the, what do you call your podcast, Shamika? Suddenly I'm not remembering. Anyway, I'll put it down in the down bar. That down bar is very handy for those of us who have bad memories. You know, saw some other people too, and some viewers who came up to say hello, and that part of it was absolutely wonderful. But it was packed, it was hot. I certainly didn't wear any knitwear. Oh, I did, I had my featherweight cardigan on, but it's a featherweight, it's very light. So I hope that it'll be different next year. We didn't go to the Needles Up event because we didn't get there in time for that, and we just never really thought about it, but that would be a fun one to check out next year. But I would suggest, if you're expecting to go to India Untangled and have a lovely stroll, that's not going to happen. But there was such fabulous vendors there. I already mentioned the three, but there was also White Birch was there, what's her name, Bare Naked Wools, which is yarn by Anne Hansen, was there. Vivid Yarns was there. Spun Right Round was there. Others that are just not coming to me right now, but lots of wonderful, wonderful yarns. So I would say, if you know what you want to go for, like I would go back thinking, I want to go to this stall, and it's free entry, but maybe not to just stroll around, because unless they change things around. It was a bit of a challenge. So that's what I got there. Then we hung out at the cabin after we had dinner in Kingston. We found a great place called the Anchor, which is kind of a pub-like place. They had some live music as well. And then we went back to the cabin. We were staying, Sue and Lino have a sort of a standing reservation with a cabin in Phoenicia. And Kate and I, because there wasn't enough room, we stayed at the lodge right across the street, which was great, little motel-like room. But there was another cabin that was inhabited by Sarah, the Canadian knitter, Marsha of the Fairy Little podcast, Jen, who is Storm Coast and has the Uncreative Crafter podcast, and Jessica, who is Sarah Nova Crafts. And they came over, we all went over to the main cabin, we'll call it, and sat and knit and had tea or wine, and I had made some homemade Baileys, which I took along too, which was really delicious. That's a recipe by an online blogger who's now got a new cookbook, who is called Smitten Kitchen, and it's her Irish cream recipe, super easy, and it was wonderful, so everybody had a little taste of that. And we just sat there and knit and chatted. That was really fun. And then Saturday morning, got up and went to the Phoenicia Diner, which is our tradition, and headed off to Rhinebeck, where we had a stunning day. I mean, the weather was beautiful. It was wonderful to walk around and see all the beautiful wares and things that people are selling. But the highlight was definitely the people. The podcaster meetup was super duper wonderful. Meeting viewers and other podcasters and other knitters. It was really great. I feel like I have to apologize if you felt like you saw me and you felt slighted by me, because I felt like a squirrel pouncing on the next nut. It was just like, oh, hello, oh, hello. The podcaster meetup was bigger than I've ever seen it. And it went on for far longer than it ever has, because it's supposed to go on for about an hour, and I think we were there for at least an hour and a half. And it was just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to meet people. It was really great, and it just fills your spirit with joy to, you know, hug a whole bunch of knitters, say hello, chat for a few minutes. I always walk away feeling like, oh, I wish we could have chatted more. But it's kind of the nature of the whole thing. We're all coming together and then off we go again. So that was definitely one highlight. And then the other highlight was standing in line for apple cider donuts and meeting a couple of wonderful ladies, Jan and another woman named Knit Diva. Suddenly I'm forgetting your first name. Willie, right? And just hanging out with them and having apple cider donuts, which I've never had before. They are totally worth the wait. Totally worth it. Next year I'll be buying a dozen and bringing them home because apparently they were still good a couple of days later, according to somebody. So it was just really, really, really fun. And then after that, we actually got some food at Rhinebeck and went back to the cabin. There was me and Holly and Kate, and Marcia of Fairy Little was with us, and she wasn't feeling great. So we just went back to the cabin and sat there and ate our falafel food that we had gotten from one of the stands at Rhinebeck. Really good falafel, by the way. Israeli style, they called it. And so it was falafel with a bunch of different salads. And then we sat there and knit. And it was great. Unfortunately, I woke up Sunday morning with the stomach bug. And I thought I could make it. And we went to the diner and I couldn't even look at my toast. And I just realized I can't make it to Rhinebeck. There is no way I'm going to be able to walk around. So the ladies took me back to the lodge and I slept for the entirety of the day. I know that Holly and Kate had a grand time and they brought me back some maple candy floss for the kids and a bottle of raspberry wine. So it was really, really sweet, and some cannolis, because on Sunday I was planning on having the cannolis. There's a couple there that makes delicious cannolis, which are these deep fried pastries. It's Italian in origin. That's kind of like a cannelloni. You know, it's a round dough, and then they put this ricotta sweet creamy filling into it, and the dough is fried, and then they insert the cream in there, and they are to die for. And so they brought some of those as well, which we ended up having when we got back the next day, and I was feeling a little bit better and I could eat a tiny bit. But the Sunday was kind of not much of a day for me, but I know that the ladies had a great time and came home with far more yarn. Now, what did I buy at Rhinebeck? Not a whole lot. And that's mainly because on Saturday, the one thing that I did buy was, as I had said I probably would, I had these two skeins that are in the Ziploc from Bartlett Yarns that I bought last year, and I wanted to buy a third skein of that color and some complementary colors to make a full hap for my living room sofa. And can you see there I don't know if it's on screen, but in the corner I have a ladder with blankets, and so I wanted to make another blanket to have there because we use them all the time. So this is kind of the main color, and I bought, as you can see, more yellow. I'm definitely going for a yellow, but there's a lot of yellow in my living room, so I got that and a darker gray. And so this is going to become, at some point, a full hap. And then there's going to be yarn left over, and it might end up becoming some other color work thing. We'll see. And that was the only thing I got at Rhinebeck, believe it or not. I got a pair of needles, Chow Goo needles. And I got some tea towels from Matterroot, Maine, which are gifts, so I thought I'm not going to show them on the podcast, depending on who they're going to go to. But I was planning on going back to the Hudson Valley. I went to it and I thought I'll come back tomorrow and decide which color I want. because I had made the Authenticity shawl from their Moodna base and I loved it so much. I went to it on Saturday and I thought, yeah, I definitely want a sweater's worth, but I couldn't decide which color. They had a plum color similar to that, and they had kind of a pink raspberry kind of color, and I couldn't decide which of those two I wanted. So I thought I'll get it on Sunday, and then I didn't go back. That's okay, because we're already planning next year's trip, and I've got enough sweater quantities, don't I? So, you know, that's all fine. Yeah, but then there were also other gifts, because Kate was very industrious and made everybody this beautiful, beautiful pouch. Look at that, with a wonderful sort of metal zipper on top, kind of a sock size. With this one's got a purple lining and a sheep and embroidered, which I think she had done, perfect sock pouch. So she made these for us. And then I decided that I was going to cover it in buttons that I collected from different people who were giving them out, and mostly podcasters. By the Lakeside, who's there, and Espace Tricot and Knitography. We saw Patricia, who we had also met at Edinburgh, and there's Hawthorn Cottage Craft and the Grocery Girls, Periscoping Sisters, and Fairy Little. And I feel like there might be a couple of other pins I gotta find, but as I collect pins, they're going to be going on here. But it wasn't just a pouch. I am now getting myself quite a collection of fine fish yarns, thanks to my Irish friends. And so Kate brought over this wonderful skein. It's so fun and colorful, of her Shimmer sock base. It's a merino nylon stellina, and the stellina is very subtle in it, so I won't try and show it to you, but it's just beautiful. And I think that's going to need to become a pair of socks, or maybe even a sock head hat. We'll see. We'll see what happens to it. So thank you so much, Kate. I feel like I was really spoiled. She also gave everybody a bunch of minis, which are all stunning, of all kinds. And I was thinking maybe I need to make myself another pair of Franken socks. I already have 2 pairs of Franken socks. They're such beautiful. This is a fondant fiber color. Look at that. And this is another fine fish one that is just beautiful. Did she say what it was? No. It's really beautiful. A variety. This is another fine fish one, I think from her Singles Merino. So those also appeared. I mentioned to you earlier that Jessica had given me, gave us all a ridiculous amount of tea, which I'm enjoying, but she also showed up with a whole bunch of minis as well. And these are very interesting minis because they're a lot in earth tones, and I was thinking that could make a beautiful pair of Franken socks as well, all in earth tones. I actually really like that idea. That might need to happen. There are lots of browns and beiges in here. So thank you so much, Jessica. And I hope I'm not forgetting anything. While the only thing I think I have left is, while we were sitting there having our our apple cider donuts with a nice coffee at the end of the day, Laura came up to me, or Lauren rather. Lauren, I remember meeting her last year at Rhinebeck, and she has since started dyeing yarn, and she's got a line of yarn called Color Wheel Yarns, and so she gave me this very fun mini. She is on Etsy as Color Wheel Yarns, so feel free to check her out if that interests you. This one's called Slutty Pumpkin Spice. Yeah, And I think that's it. We also did go to Woodstock for dinner on the Sunday night. I thought I was feeling better. I didn't have dinner in the end. I ordered food, couldn't eat it. But Woodstock, if you're ever in the area, is a really beautiful town, and it's where the Woodstock happened in the late 60s. That was on a farm outside of the town, but the town is a vibrant, smaller town with lovely shops, and there was a drumming circle happening when we were there, so the town was just beating, and it was really, really lovely. And we go every year because it's just fabulous, and we have dinner there. And so that was our trip, and then on the way back on Monday, we just left after we got ready in the morning and took our time coming back to Canada. Stopped at a beautiful old cemetery. I put some pictures up on Instagram, so if you are there, you will have seen them already. Stopped and took pictures of pumpkin patches and rolling hills, and it was just beautiful through Amish country, which is always a delight. And the area is just so stunning. So I look forward to this trip every year to go to our Mecca. And yeah, this year was no exception. And it was especially wonderful to have Kate with us, and Holly as well, and Marcia from Vancouver, and to be able to hang out with that whole group that was in the other cabin as well. So it was really, really fun. And it was wonderful to meet podcasters that I really enjoy, that I've never been able to meet before either. Said hello to Joanna from Stitching the High Note. And as I said, Tracy, I didn't really talk to Jody, but I really talked to Tracy, met the two ladies from Espace Tricot. Oh my gosh, there's so many more. And of course said hello to many people and many podcasters that I've been able to say hello to in the past as well. Met Mina of the Knitting Expat. We've communicated so much over the years, but we've never actually seen one another. So it was oodles and oodles of fun. If you ever have a chance to go to Rhinebeck, I think it's totally worth it. And I think that's about it, my dears. It is the weekend, so I don't know what we have planned. We are going to be carving pumpkins later on today, and we need to plant our garlic for next year, so let's see if we can get that in. I did mention to you at the beginning that we have 2 rats. However, one of our rats is not doing so well right now. He's got a humongous tumor on his back. But he seems to be doing all right in terms of continuing to live his daily life. So that should be going well. But I was a little worried earlier that we might need to take him to the vet and see what we would do. But he seems to be better off than I thought he was. So we're going to let him continue enjoying his life, and we're going to continue enjoying him. This is Army, who, if you follow me on Instagram, there's a picture of me and Army on my shoulder. And you know, it's funny because I was actually quite phobic of rats until we got them. And now I feel really attached, and I know that I'm going to be really, really sad. But they're not long-living creatures, so, you know, it's going to happen one day. And I can already feel the tears kind of coming to my eyes. I'm going to stop talking about that. So yeah, October is almost over. If you are a Halloween enjoyer, I hope you enjoy it fully. We are expecting rainy weather here, so let's see what happens. But it's not snowing, because that has happened before. I remember being a child and trick-or-treating in the snow. And this year we've had such an incredibly, incredibly warm fall that we can at least say it won't be snowing on Halloween. And if you do not celebrate Halloween, and if you celebrate All Saints' Day instead, I wish you blessings for that day. And we'll see you next time, hopefully in 2 or 3 weeks. I'll be back and I'll share some more stuff with you. Thank you again for joining me today. Happy crafting to you. I hope things are going well, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.